Crystal, welcome to the Site Shed podcast.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Now, where are you joining us from?
East Texas in the United States.
Yeehaw!
Yeehaw. Yes, we actually don't ride horses or wear cowboy boots very often, but I'm sure that's what people think of Texas.
It's very disappointing to hear, but yeah, I know it's like in Calgary. I know for like 2 weeks of the year, everyone pulls out a cowboy hat and cowboy boots and shows up to the stampede there, pretending they're cow people.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, we have our fair share of rodeos and good stuff like that, but it's actually not the average person.
Sure. No, it's a good part of the world. I spent a bit of time in Houston. I loved it over there.
Oh, yeah, we're not very far from Houston, about 2 hours north.
Yeah, nice. So you're joining us today to have a conversation around some brand-related topics, which is, I think, somewhat refreshing because I think typically when people hear branding, they think of logos, and as you and I both know, it can be, thankfully, a lot deeper than that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, we branding, like building your logo and your look, van wraps and things like that, that's just your first step. You really have to create something that you embody and that you're able to actually push out into your market in much more than just your logo. Definitely a huge part of it, but you kind of has to be your identity.
Yeah, and I think as well, like what the non-obvious aspects to the brand conversation, which we see, and as you would too, as a marketing agency, in the space of the ecosystem of a lead's journey, lead into client, so on and so forth. Like that's where brand becomes a lot more relevant, and I think today there's such an opportunity there to build a brand and position yourselves as like an expert within the trades and contracting space, which really does play into that ecosystem of conversion throughout the various stages of the sales process, which is not really obvious and it's very hard to quantify.
Oh, I always say this: don't discount things that are harder to quantify, because it's the sum of all things that make you really successful. And so definitely, building out things that build who you are and let your people in your market, your area know exactly like what you stand for, what type of service they're going to get. It really will exponentially help you grow your business. You just have to have a little patience to let it work and let it mature and let it grow.
And I like the mature part of that conversation because I certainly, in my experience with my own businesses and clients that we work with, it's very much a case of brands being a living, breathing evolution, and they will change, and it doesn't necessarily have to. And I think this is why it's so important for you guys out there to be treating your digital assets like your websites and things like that as a living, breathing organism that you're constantly adapting and amending and updating. And like, it's not like a one and done thing, or it's not something that you need to have as because your competitors have got one. Like it really should be the tool to help you tell your story, showcase your expertise, and things like that. Because it is an evolution. And a prime example of this is when and you probably have experienced this as well, where you have clients come on board and they're like, right, this is what we want to do. This is the type of customer that we want to attract. And then 12 months into their campaign, they've realized that their strengths lie in other areas, and their whole avatars changed, their whole product delivery, service offering, like everything is shifted into a slightly, like it might be in the same, like we still might be a plumber, but now all of a sudden we're specializing in hot water heaters, or we're specializing in pipe relaying, or whatever it might be. And it happens all the time. And truthfully, you can't crystal ball any of that stuff. In my experience, you just need hours. You need time, and you need momentum.
Yeah, I mean, so I use this analogy quite often. It's like sitting down at a game of chess and strategizing and planning, but never being able to get up. So marketing is always living in that space of how do I be intentional? How do I tell my story? How do I be strategic? How do I find the money? Like you're constantly moving pieces to be successful and be strategic. And, unfortunately, I think a lot of contractors, especially, they're looking for like the silver bullet. They're looking for somebody to tell them the one thing they can do. And there's not one thing. It's the sum of all of these things coming together. And to be real truthful, not to take anything away from marketers, but real businesses scale and grow based off the operations. Marketing just is a support tool to a great
100%.
operator.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And we see that as and we have this document as part of our process where we know for certain, like when like people come to us, they're not coming to us they go because they want to improve operations. They're coming to us because they think they want more leads or they want more jobs or whatever it might be. But then like we know full well that in order for that to become a reality, they're going to have their fulfillment team dialed in so they can keep up to capacity with, that the new amount of work and all these kind of dynamics, which are not obvious. People don't necessarily consider from the beginning. So you bang on, like the way you scale. I just did a podcast last Friday with a colleague of mine, Scott, and he runs in Australian standards, a large home service business stemming from the plumbing vertical. And, they're probably doing, 30 odd mils kind of a year turnover, which is pretty big for Australia.
Oh, yeah.
And, they always had that mindset and approach in the space of like to this day, they're not big into Google. Like they're not big on paid advertising, like their whole marketing messaging for the last, couple of decades has always been around professionalism, trust, rapport, reliability, and really giving the attention to their customers and their database that it deserves. Very big on mail outs, very big on, nurture campaigns and email marketing and all these kind of things. Which I think when people come to us as an agency, normally it's like, we need more. And it normally comes at the cost of, the contacts and the lists they've already built in the past and the customers they've already paid for.
Yes, yes. And it will make when you decide, because that's what I say, when you decide and you get dedicated to focus on building your brand, you will see that everything else that you're doing tends to perform exponentially better. So as you build your brand and you solidify like who you are in the market and what you stand for, and you're just visible when I don't need you, when I do need the service that you provide, and I see your name pop up in my searches or just you're top of mind. And so you have to think of it as doing pre-work every single day for when people do need your services, you're the first one they think about. And then those other things that you're doing, direct mail or Google or whatever you're using, it will exponentially perform better because people know you. They recognize your name immediately and they choose you. It just really boosts the performance of your other marketing strategies as well.
So my hope is off the back of this recording, the listeners and viewers out there will get a bit of insight as to maybe some stepping stones, a bit of formula, maybe some actionable takeaways that they can they can take away and leverage in the space of, maybe some stepping stones to do the right thing in order to get their brand dialed in so that they can, so their marketing and their conversions has a better impact. So I'm super keen to hear what your take on a lot of these concepts. Obviously, I have a fair few ideas in this space as well. So it'd be good to put our heads together and see what we come up with.
Yeah.
So why don't we start ground roots here for those guys out there that are in business, they're maybe considering dialing up, their like the conversation around scale in the space of, okay, we want to sort of grow the business, inverted commas, whatever that looks like. I think people also have a bit of a jaded opinion, perspective on what that actually means. But like, what are some of the things I suppose we need to keep in line from the perspective of brand before we go down the path of pumping money into ads and marketing and those kind of things?
So number one, you do need to take care of what your brand looks like. So logo, like I mentioned earlier, it is an important piece. And so I tell everyone, start now with having a unique look, your taglines, your editorial style, your editorial branding, the way that you write, the way your taglines look, the way your messaging comes across, and your actual vans and the way that things look is very important. Because look, a lot of times standalone will be memorable. So if you choose to add a unique color or an identifying icon or a mascot or anything like that. So I encourage you to start now because everything you do moving forward is building your brand. So if you're going to start now, like, I'll rebrand in a few years, just know that you're building the brand no matter what you do. So you're building a brand. So if you know that you're going to change and update and, audit or fix whatever that your current logo looks like and things like that, then you're going to want to do that as soon as you can afford to do it. So that's one thing. The other thing is I tell everybody it's a necessary evil. You have to have a good website because even if you're not doing paid ads and things like that, we still live in a digital world where people want to look at you, and they want to be able to investigate you a little bit. So you need to make sure you have a good website.
Mm-hmm.
Those are core things that I would tell any business owner. If you, where do I start? It's those two places. Look
Yeah.
as good as you can afford to look and have a website as good as you can afford to have. And then from there, it's all very customized and very dependent upon what kind of money you have to invest in your marketing strategy. Marketing is an investment. It's not as transactional as you want it to be. It's hard to measure every single dollar, what it generates back. It is hard. When people tell you that it's not hard, that's because all of their money is in digital performance. And so they like to get in a boxing ring and go, 100 rounds. I personally want my contractors to be able to get on a nice, steady jog where we're not killing ourselves every day. We're slowly but surely building our brand and getting those leads. And so just having a realistic expectation. So my family's company, I come from a background of this. And so my family owns and operates a heating and air conditioning and company, well over $20 million in East Texas. And one of the things that we learned is when we are in growth mode, we are spending 10 to 12% of our revenue goal in marketing.
There you
That
go.
means we want to grow aggressively. And so of that, we like to dial in an aggressive branding style campaign, whether that is a billboard launch blitz, as I call it, whether that is owning radio with a jingle, whether that is a different signage of some sport, TV, digital TV, and things like that. Because we know that that is how we are going to become a household name. We force it to be that way.
So when you say like a branding focused marketing, is this mean this is not like big bold offers and guarantees and driving people top of funnel? It's more just an awareness campaign.
Right. Like I would recommend that we just start telling people who you are. So use things like a billboard that's full of tons of a big fat offer and like follow us on social media and all these phone numbers and QR codes. People don't even know who you are. So spend your creative time there in front of people that are driving and live driving every day, places they drive every day. Do something that sticks out that makes you memorable. So I
Yep.
don't know. Here we have a company called Chick-fil-A. And Chick-fil-A, their whole thing is cows promoting to eat more chicken. And so and so when you're driving down the highway, they have these large billboard with these three-dimensional cows hanging off the side of them. And it literally looks like they hand painted eat more chicken, right?
That's so
It's
good.
hilarious. And there's not one offer on there. They're not 50 cents
Yeah,
off of a free chicken sandwich. None of it. It is 1000% just sticky in your mind. So next time you get ready for something to eat, you're like, dang, Chick-fil-A sounds good. And Chick-fil-A is known for those cow mascots, even though they are a chicken company.
that's so good.
And so
Um,
it's great.
so to give a couple of bit of supporting context to what you've just said, then we see the same stats here: 10% for a minimum 10% for a business that is in a growth stage for marketing. That's what we're seeing over
Yes.
here. And the other thing is, so I have recently had Tom Howard on the show. I don't know if you know
Mm.
Tom.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
he's been on the show maybe 4 or 5 times now, and he says as well part of their big marketing and branding strategy in their area. So Fresno, where their big shop is in California, for example, they do just exactly what you said. They just whatever they can get from a brand perspective, exposure wise, billboards, bus stops, like whatever
Yep.
it might be. They invest in that. Letterbox drops. Even he said on one of the episodes that he has like they have like a strategy where people can have their branding like a sign in their yards that has a
Yard
QR
signs.
code on it. And then anyone that like it comes from that QR code, they get spiffed back on it, and people just leave it in there because it's like, well, we just like Tom said, it's crazy. We've got people that have had these signs, like they call us up asking for a new sign because the other one's getting too worn out kind of thing. Like,
Yes,
so
yes. I mean, I don't think, especially now. So I think as the market, more and more now we're exposed to more and more things. We have access through
yes.
social media and through the internet. We just were inundated with people selling. And so I do think that selling isn't it has to be an intentional part of your strategy, like asking for the business. But what I do know is that people want to do business with people that they like and understand and feel like they know. So
Mm-hmm.
to do that, we have to be where they are. So another big piece of this is what I call community involvement and engagement. And this is where you highlight your main area, you get plugged into that city in some form or fashion, into those communities. So it's sponsoring the Little League teams.
Yeah.
It is sending your mascot to the opening day of Little League season. It is partnering with the Chamber of Commerce and showing up and just being visible in the market. So for example, like here, when kids play youth sports, sometimes you can put banners up around the baseball field or around the little football fields or whatever. And that again is just one more place that your ideal target market is experiencing your brand in a positive way. So again, you're not going to put a banner out there that says call for $25 off your next service.
Sure.
It,
Yeah.
it just needs to be, we're not comfortable till you are, or open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week,
Yeah.
something that makes a unique identifier. And so I just firmly believe that when you go into a market, for those of you that are really going into competitive markets, people won't be able to figure out what you did because all of a sudden, everywhere they look, there you are. And
Mm.
not even selling them anything, it's just exposing them to what services you offer. Very, very top of the funnel piece.
It's kind of, I suppose, conceptually, what drove like retargeting, basically, like that whole concept around getting your brand back in the face of people that have seen it once so they can see it again and again and again and again. That's kind of essentially what retargeting is. And you guys would all know what we're talking about here. It's basically when you visit a website, you go off the website, you jump onto Google, and all of a sudden you get hit with all of their ads. So you've been pixeled on their website, and then you go to Google, you see their ads, you go to Facebook, you see their ads, you're like, wow, these guys are everywhere all of a sudden. So similar thing. And aligned with what you said before about the sporting dynamic. And I'm still amazed to this day at when I'm a massive baseball fan and I love like watching games and all of the banners, that come up with all the different brands. And I just think, why Coca-Cola, why do they have a banner at a sport game? Or why does Kia have like just banners everywhere? But this is the thing. Like, I mean, if there's companies like that are investing in these sort of strategies, it clearly works. Like, they're not just throwing money away. It's not like we've got marketing budget that we have to spend. These things work.
Yeah, well, and even a unique thing here is so like, if you have smaller like junior colleges versus universities, a lot of times you can pay attention to where of these different colleges and universities and things like that, the majority of the people attending those. If you can do some research with the university or with the college to understand who is attending, odds are it's a lot of alumni that
Mm.
went there. So a lot of them are local people that live there. And so you can actually get really good endorsements with your local colleges and universities fairly inexpensively and really get a good reach out of those because they need the funding to help them afford some other perks. So they'll work you some good deals. And it actually studies have shown that people that have a connection with a university, it elevates their authority in the space because they assume that colleges and universities are vetting their partners to a high standard. And so it's like, oh, they were able to partner with, this college or this junior college and get in front of people. It's an interesting approach as well. Again, billboards and community support and engagement, those things are very hard to measure, but don't discredit it just because it's harder to measure. When you put those things, you should see your direct search and things like direct search, organic search, or social media following. All of that should start growing the bigger and bolder you are with your branding campaigns.
Yeah,
And so that's how
exactly.
you measure success. It's an overall like combination of all the things that you're doing.
Yeah, and it's a tricky one sometimes to parlay to clients in the space of return on ad spend and things like that, because like when you're running promotional ads, like the return is pretty measurable. But then when you're running sort of brand related campaigns, the return is it's hard to quantify outside, like when you get micro on it, micro on it. And it's the same as well for you guys out there that deal in bigger projects. So if you're like a new home builder, for example, and you deal in big scale projects, by nature, your sales cycle is going to be considerably longer than somebody who specializes in block drains. And so although you may be spending money on lead generation, you really need to consider all the different dynamics that fall into that ecosystem in the space of how long it genuinely takes for somebody to, purchase $1 million new home build off you. And you need to account for that within, that conversation around, well, what are our conversions looking like? And we know, like, when we're working with builders, like, we openly say to them, like, this is not, like, someone is not going to click on a Facebook ad and sign up for a new home build in 3 months. Like, that just does not happen. So you need to like apply thought into the back end. Okay, what happens off the back of generating this lead, which is going to be the important part of the conversation for you, as opposed to someone that's like, well, I'm an emergency electrician and I just deal with when power goes out. Like, that's like, I need you, come now, no conversation, get out. Whereas, that's a completely different conversation.
Yeah, I've learned a lot of times that people have some unrealistic expectations too of like how long things are going to take to return. So, the sales cycle with people can be pretty complex because remember, most people don't wake up every day needing, nor do they ever want to have to call us that are in home service. No one is excited to get a new roof or excited to buy a new heating and air conditioning system or excited to repipe their whole house. We're not excited, and we're irritated that we have to spend money on those things because those are not enjoyable things. And so we have to really work hard for the long game of being the one that they know they can trust and use, and then having expectations that align with that, so that we're not like, oh man, as soon as I launched, I laugh at contractors like, when you do a system giveaway, let's say we're going to give away a new system and we're going to promote it and we're going to celebrate it and it's going to be picked up for public relations. Odds of someone calling and say, man, I saw where y'all gave a system away, I want to buy one today. That doesn't happen. Everything we do needs to be to generate buzz around our company. And we just want to constantly be in the spotlight so that people think of us when they need us, and they think of us on their own, not so much through a search. And just having clear expectations is so important because it sets everybody up for success when going into a situation and into a partnership what should be performing immediately, like what should have a good return on an ad spend, quicker, smoother, faster, versus what is going to be a long-term, stay in it marathon strategy.
And I guess this is through no fault of their own as the. I mean, I'm formerly a plumber, right? So I get it. Like we never taught any of this stuff going through college, and like these are things you have to learn over the years and in the trenches. But essentially, and it's very easy for a marketing agency as well to go and run a report or pull up a red flag. You see it all the time, right? Well, we had this report run by another agency and they said you're doing all these things wrong. You're like, well, hang on a minute. They're not. I don't know if it's obviously like their way of trying to win work, which is pretty scummy for all you agencies out there. I hope you crash in the next car. But look, the point is there's dynamics there that need to be considered in the interest of that campaign, which are not obvious. And this is kind of what we're talking about here with brand. Like you've got, and I say this to guys all the time, like your first point of contact with that individual might be an ad. Like it may well be. They may see an ad, they may click on it. Mm-hmm. They might enter into a funnel or some description or take the next stage, hit a landing page, whatever it might be. They might be directed to a chat AI agent. Like it could be a number of different things. And so that first impression is important. But then off the back of that, what happens? And in most cases, what we see, the businesses that we deal with, they don't necessarily like generating the lead is not the hard part. It's the sales, it's the process which follows, which is where most of them drop the ball. It's how fast do we get back to these leads? What does the conversation look like? What sort of content are we sending them that's relevant to what they're, the ad they've seen or what they're interested in? Are we considering like our sales cycle in terms of how long it normally takes? Do we even have that data available? So there's all these little dynamics there that can happen off the back of the lead being generated, which really play into the whole ecosystem of what we would say conversion, which is, okay, well, finally getting someone to sign on the dotted line. And I think as a trade business, I think you guys need to identify, okay, what are the different stages within our process? Like for us, when we're working with project-based contractors, which is primarily what we do, if we're working with a solar company, we know lead will come in, and then the first thing we want to do is have a discovery call with them to see if they, first of all, are the right type of customer that we can help, and do they have the budget? Are they in the right location? Like all those kind of things. If that all works out, then we'll book a site visit with an actual someone to go out there and measure up, and then off the back of the site visit, we should be able to be closing jobs. And there's different ratios there that we can measure, which can sort of gauge where some of the improvements can be made throughout the process. And those things they're not obvious. Like the obvious one is money we spent on ads and return we got back from it. But then there's these other dynamics which really play into that whole conversion conversation. And this is always foreign to somebody, especially when they're coming out of a world of referrals and word of mouth, because all of a sudden this whole cold traffic beast, which is a totally different conversation, totally different stats, totally different numbers, and it's a learning curve. And you've got to be, if you guys are deciding that you want to go down that route of using cold traffic to scale your business, which I encourage. I mean, you can absolutely achieve those. You can't scale referrals. I've never seen anyone do it. But you need to understand that is a different conversation, and there's things that you need to consider, to make that campaign a success, and things that are not obvious, you need to educate yourself on.
Well, educating yourself is very important. And, and another thing is people are like, oh man, good marketing is good marketing. That's very true. But also, like, there is some uniqueness to every single market, every single industry, so, you almost can't take a lot of advice from other contractors on what worked for them, because everything is very different. Like, sometimes there's a big difference in actual markets, even though you're in the same country, same state, your market might be just very different than the person that you're taking advice from. And so everything has to be taken into consideration, but doesn't necessarily have to have application.
Mm-hmm.
And so understanding that, and it helps setting those clear expectations of, do you really want to be able to measure every single thing? It just puts you on a hamster wheel. So sometimes, again, and I know I've said this numerous times, you have to look at your overall campaign. So yes, I donated, 5 cases of a sports drink to this school, and we took a picture in front of my van and we posted it on our social media channels, and parents commented on it. But then I also bought an aggressive PPC campaign. Like, those are going to have very different responses. Some are long and some are short. My encouragement here is that you have a healthy balance. Lemon Seed uses a 3-bucket approach, basically. So we have 3 buckets that all of the different advertising strategies that we use have to fit into. And one of those is a branding bucket. So literally, we know that we are choosing this advertising tactic to build and drive brand awareness. And so we know the expectation over there is it's a little bit harder to track. You have to track a little bit more directionally. But then that second bucket is our call to action bucket. So it is, where are we asking for the business when people are looking for the service? So we know that not everybody's going to know us. Not everybody's going to retain it. So when people are out searching for my service, how can I show up there? How do I ask people for the business? So that's where you have direct mail and SEO and PPC and all of the alphabet soup that we have there. And then that last bucket is the cultivation bucket. And that bucket is taking care of leads that you already paid for. You already paid for them and got them in your CRM. They're in your little spider web there. So how do we continue to cultivate those people, stay top of mind with them, build a referral program with them? So when you can start looking at every one of your advertising tactics and dropping them into one of those buckets, it'll help you set expectations clearly. It'll help you know where to push and pull when you need to find budget. And you also are able to measure those overall a lot better. But at the end of the day, it's, how did all of those strategies work together? Did you grow your company or did you not? Were you stagnant? Were you actually getting new customers, and were you making the most of your existing customers? It is the combination of all.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think it's super important for you guys out there to understand. And going back to what you were saying, Crystal, towards the beginning of the conversation, with how important it is to have the website, because like it's very common, and we see this all day when we're measuring, different touch points within the sales process to even book discovery calls, for example, where people might see an ad. They might be on the bus to work or they might be on a train to work, whatever it is. They see an ad, they click on the ad, they like the look of it, they fill the form in, they get to work, and then the phone rings. And they can't answer it because they're at work. Now, that pretty much is where most businesses give up. That leads were no good. Tried the call, no one answered. But like you need to understand, and this is where it's important to have things like consider the ecosystem of search and the ecosystem of that sale and that acquisition. Like there needs to be multiple touch points, first of all, within the sales process, but as well, like if that person goes back into the office and they're like, oh, I clicked on this ad earlier and their name was Bob's Plumbing. I'm just going to Google that. Then the website shows up. And then if the website's built right and it can showcase your expertise and it can tell your story well and it can position you as the go-to expert within your area, so on and so forth, then that is a big conversion tool. And here's the funny thing. A lot of times that attribution will come down to an organic search. But like really, like you were saying before, Crystal, like it's kind of if you're not getting super granular on the direct like attribution, but you're thinking of it as, okay, well, what's the conversion as a whole here? Like a lot of the CRMs can track this stuff these days, but sometimes they can't, and so it's not always as black and white as you would like. But again, like it is an opportunity for you guys out there to really improve the conversions of the leads you may already be getting, and we see that so much. Like
Yes.
that is conversion rate optimization 101. If you can take your existing traffic and you can take the conversion to your website from a 2% to a 4%, and you've spent no more money on ads, but you've got a 100% increase in your conversions, like that's a big deal. So, and that stuff is not really obvious. Most people just think, well, we'll just pump more money.
Yeah, and again, I can normally pinpoint when I can see where people are spending money on marketing and then their revenue and then their average tickets and things like that. When I can put a few of those puzzle pieces together, it tells a story without ever talking to the owner. I can tell by just where they're placing their dollars and things like that because I just think, numbers tell a story about how aggressive you are, how risky you are, how intentional you are. And you have to make the most of every single lead that's coming through. And then you have to make the most of every single customer that's ever trusted you because you need those people. Like we need customers. And so we have to work diligently to get new customers. If you're not getting new customers every single month, you're basically a dying business. So new customer acquisition, it's important to understand what advertising tactics are actually driving new customers to your business and tracking that and monitoring that and then pushing more money. Contractors tell me all the time, I have unlimited budget for things that are working. If it's working, I'll give you all the money. The tricky part is like, it is all seasonal and it's all transactional when it comes to you'll be doing some great things and seeing great response. And all of a sudden people will say, man, with Google local service ads, it's like I hit a wall. Well, that's because you sat down at that chess game of marketing and what your strategy was working, your opponent figured it out. So now you've got to pivot, you've got to change. And you have to, as a business owner, understand that marketing is ever evolving. And you're really never going to be able to be like, oh, thank God, this is rolling perfectly. You either have to hire someone in-house, partner with a company like Lemon Seed or somebody, or you just have to, as a owner, know that that's the life that you live when it comes to marketing is always looking for opportunities to be successful and grow your business.
We had that conversation this morning actually with my account manager who had it with our client yesterday, but same deal, like their Google ad campaign just stopped before. They were crushing it with their Google ad campaign. But again, like talking about things that are seasonal, not so much seasonal, but time sensitive, and that was completely out of everyone's hands in the space of like a rebate that was available for solar coming into the end of last year, and then that basically got turned off. So their campaign was doing extremely well, and then the rebate ended and campaign fell over. They were super pumped because they were like, finally, Google's working better than Facebook ads, and they were stoked. Mm-hmm. And then now we're back on Facebook ads. Mm-hmm. But again,
I just tell everybody, I don't know about you guys, but like I just deal better when I understand the game that I'm choosing to play. Yeah. But if you walk in and you approach marketing and branding, like another thing is it's hard for contractors to really get behind true branding because sometimes it pushes you outside of your comfort zone. Like
Totally.
It requires you to be fun and outgoing and intentional. Like nobody wants to sit down and record a bunch of videos every day. No one wants to put a content out there. A lot of contractors, they just want to put their head down and go to work, but that no longer is that the only thing you have to do. You need to be looking and creating and doing and engaging. It's just a part of the struggle now.
Yeah. And as much as it's a struggle, it's also a huge opportunity for you guys. And what I mean by that is 99% of your competitors also don't want to do it and are not willing to do it. So for the 1%ers out there that are willing to do the thing, you're likely going to get the result. And you don't have to go far. Like, and for context, if you jump onto, YouTube and you search, like, I don't know, like builders in your area or carpenters in your area or electricians in your area or whatever it might be that has good content, it will stand out. It's very hard for Crystal and I as marketing agencies to create content that stands out because every marketer wants to do the same thing and they all understand that. So, you guys have a very big opportunity in that space where you can really position yourself as the expert, provided that you're willing to do the thing and maybe, cop a couple on the chin. Where you start is always going to be the worst. And
Yeah.
it is a skill that gets better and better. And we say this to our clients all the time. And truthfully, we see it all the time. Like the clients are all like shaky and they hate the first video they've got to do and they cock it up all the time. We've got to do 1,000 edits on the video. And then after 6 months, they're just crushing it. And they're so natural and it's flowing and they've just gotten so good at it because they're just consistently doing it. So it is a skill that you guys can develop.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Just setting those expectations. And I think there's a lot of pleasure too in building out a solid brand that people start to recognize and people start to make a household name. Your team then becomes proud to work for the most well-known company in the market. Your team is excited to wear the uniform and get the hat. They may not necessarily just, rant and rave, but at the end of the day, your team is your first marketers. They are the first line. If they won't even recommend you to their own friends and family, you have another set of issues. And so, really make sure that you're worried about your internal marketing as well. Like, what does your team think about who you are? Because we want them to be proud to drive our vans and proud to, offer services to these clients. And so, don't forget about your internal marketer, your internal team as well.
Yeah, no, totally. Good chat. All right. Well, this has been great. I suppose like if we can leave the listeners and the viewers with a bit of a maybe a framework, maybe some do's and don'ts on where to get started with this. I'd say, you've kind of covered off in the first place. First of all, have like some sort of branding in the space of like a logo. And with that, I would say as well, guys, even before that step, like the naming of the business, when you go down that exercise, and I've had this conversation hundreds of times, and I've got videos on it, like gone are the days where it's important to have the sort of cliche name, like it's important to have a brand that kind of stands out. And the reason for that, a brand name that stands out. And the reason for that is, well, one of the many reasons for that is in a world that's so busy today with the online marketing space, it's important to be able to uniquely identify yourself against all your competitors. So 20 years ago when I was a plumber, there would be all these plumbing companies that would pop up. They'd be the Drain Doctor, Dr. Drain, Dr. Drip, Drip Doctor, Dr. Tap, Tap Doctor, and all these like crazy. And it's like, oh my God. And to this day, I still get people like, oh, I've got this name for a business. I'm thinking of calling it the Drain Surgeon or whatever. I'm like, look, okay, just enough with the cliche. Like that is done, right? So come up with something that's unique and that stands out that you can actually own,
Yes.
Like
If you're buying a brand off of a shelf, like that someone else created and it has nothing to do with who you are or what you stand for, there's no authenticity to it. And so you have a harder time, like you have to work really hard to keep that brand going. But when it's naturally like who you are and what you stand for, when we are helping clients rebrand, we're going to interview them and we ask a lot of questions like, tell me about your family and how did the business get started and what do you like to do? And through that, we develop for them, oh my gosh, you love tennis? Like, what about serve it up heating and air conditioning, right? Or you love funny jokes. Like, what about calling yourself knock knock? Like, because it's much easier to tell the story when the story's true and the story's real. It's when you're like, well, my name's Smith Heating and Air Conditioning. And you're like, okay, there's 25 of those. Or if you have the name Comfort or Air in your name, odds are it's going to be hard to stand out. If you're red and blue and not something super unique to it, you're going to have trouble standing out. And so right now, just be unique, but be something that you can own, that is a part of a dynamic that you can get behind. It'll be a game changer for you.
Yeah, the best names that we see today are like businesses that it's a one word. It doesn't necessarily have the service in it. Doesn't have a name in it. Doesn't have a location in it. And in considering that title, you want to make sure that you, first of all, the domain names are available. Then you want to check that the social handles are available, because social is a global platform. Remember that as well. Like, you don't want to be, and we've seen this happen so many times where, clients have called up, they go, we've got this a negative Google review from somebody in the US, and we don't know what that is. And somebody just Googled the company, the name's the same or insanely similar, and then they've left a review on the wrong company.
Yep.
So these are things you need to consider. So the domain name, the social handles, and then obviously the business registration. Like in Australia, we have to register the business name through Australia's security commissions. But the point is, like, there's so many similar names in there. Like, the more unique it is, the easier it's going to be for you. So, and today, I mean, 15 years ago, it was a case where, okay, well, we want to have the location and the service in our domain name because it would help our marketing. But today, that's not really the case. Like, you can't go to sydneyplumber.com.au. Like, that's not going to serve you any better than something unique. So you can steer away from all those cliche things in the space of naming your business.
Well, my biggest don't, I do have one good don't, and that is don't ask a community or a committee.
Right.
Anything that's risky and bold and brave and going to stand out is going to be really hard to get a ton of people to agree to, because they're not ready to be risky. They don't understand the process. So my biggest encouragement on the don't things to do around your brand is just don't ask too many people. We encourage our people that are considering Lemon Seed, like when they're getting ready to rebrand and we're working alongside them, we tell them, go pick one trusted advisor. It could be your business coach. It can be your best friend. It can be your service manager, whatever it is. But we're going to ask one person, and that one person is going to give you positive feedback and negative feedback so that you yourself make the decision of what you're going to do. And then when you present that to your team and to the world and to your market, you're going to present it with so much conviction and so much story behind it that people can't help but buy in. So don't stop looking for all of these people to get on board. Like, well, I showed several of my friends and half of them liked it and half of them didn't. I'm like, yeah, because it's different. It's unique. You're not going to get a lot of buy-in because you have to hit the market and people go, oh my gosh, because they don't have an option. When you say, what do you think of this? You let people think that their opinion matters. And most of the time when they're interacting with brands, they're not thinking that they had another choice. They're just naturally engaging with that brand. And so pick one trusted advisor, maybe two, but that's literally towing the line for me, because you will slow yourself down and every good idea that you ever have will be snuffed out because committees can't agree.
It's like when you name a child and you're like asking for people's opinion of it. You just shouldn't do that.
No.
Everyone,
Just
everyone,
announce the name, because most people aren't ballsy to be like, oh my gosh, that name is terrible. Right. But I just want people to really own their brand identity, and take it further than the design elements. Take it into like how you write, how you answer the phone, how you respond to reviews, how you post on social media. What do your emails look like? Like, let it just continue to mature through all of your marketing and advertising, and it really will set you apart.
yeah, absolutely. And then I guess, so once you have that defined, then you can go ahead and you can just develop a logo. And I guess, like, logos, truthfully, as long as it's professional and it's, doesn't look like it's done in clip art. I mean, it's got to align with your brand, I suppose, in the sense of, okay, well, are we a modern chic kind of business, or are we sort of retro, or whatever it might be? Like, you can sort of amalgamate those things into your logo design.
Well,
And then
when you trust, like, so Lemon Seed has a team of graphic designers. My partner is a graphic designer by trade here at Lemon Seed. One of the things that I like to say is, designers know more than just how to draw a logo. Like, they understand color theory. So, like, what colors work best together. They understand legibility. So, like, why do I not want to use this font on a van? Why does it matter that there's variations and texture and all these things that I'm terrible at that game. I just
Mhm.
know it when it looks good, right? But making it look good, building it. So I definitely to encourage you to consider graphic designers that live in the corporate space that understand more than just their ability to draw, because they're wildly talented. But do they really understand like unique color combinations and things like that? And most of us are not skilled at that. We
And even
know a good logo when we see it.
sure, but even beyond that, like, and the non-obvious things again, which a designer will know from the get-go is, okay, well, like, what collateral is this logo going to live on? Like,
Yes.
like you see it all the time, these beautiful like logos, and you're like, that is literally impossible to embroider.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
could never in a million years go on a uniform. It just can't. So
Yes. Yes.
there's things
Or
there that
convert it to one color.
right,
I mean,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying. You don't have to think of those things, especially when you trust a professional branding agency that automatically starts, even with the graphic designer, they automatically start thinking way deeper into your brand launch. Like,
Mm.
how does this look on a uniform, on a van, on a banner, on direct mail pieces? How does it embroider? Like you said, all of those things really are impactful. And so trusting professionals that understand that, and then also making sure that when you pick a branding company, they're actually able to help you curate the full story, not
Mm.
just a set of deliverables, like, but how do you implement it and how do you start it? Like, how do I do this with my brand? And so Lemon Seeds worked really hard because we understand how hard that is, to build out processes to help contractors do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess once you have the logo developed, the website, and again going back to, I suppose, what we were talking about earlier in the conversation, like the website should essentially be a reflection, of the company, and it's okay to have content on the website which is in line with maybe the way that you talk and the way that you do things. And I'm not suggesting that if you don't speak very well that you have spelling errors all over your website. But what I'm saying is you can kind of make it your own, and you can have wording, and you can make it fun. It doesn't have to be this static. Like 15 years ago, it was very much this is how the websites need to be. Whereas today, like we're seeing a lot better feedback from websites that are, the reflection of an individual, and they've got that personalized kind of touch to it. It's okay to put your face on your website, guys. Like that might be a shock to you,
Yes.
but people
People want
actually
to do business with people that they know.
let into their home. Like
Yes, yes, yes.
back in the day where it's like, we want to appear like we're a huge, massive company. And then all of a sudden you see all these big companies like, actually, we want to appear like a small company because we're not
Mhm.
getting any saturation at all with
Yeah, well, once you get those brand elements, your look, your textures, your colors, all of those things, that you should be getting a full brand guide from whoever's designing stuff for you. You then take those elements, and I would put them on my website. I would make sure that my social media channels are all reflecting my new color scheme, my new name, my taglines, my about us. All of it is updated to do that. Even your emails. So if you're sending out emails, are they reflective of your new name, your new editorial speak? Your invoices that are coming from your CRM, like, are they even, does all of this match? Because the customer journey needs to match as much as possible. Wrap the largest vehicle in your fleet in as many fleet as you can wrap. Just, you want to make a splash with a brand refresh, definitely, to stand out.
Yeah, I love it. And then I think just beyond that, like in terms of brands, it becomes a case of like consistency. Like, I mean, from our point of view, like just tell your story and, tell it off, and don't think of it like
And
a one.
over and over and over and over and over again.
Exactly. Like if you finish a project, talk about it. If have a good experience, talk about it. If you had a bad experience, talk about it. What did you learn? Like it's okay to be, you know, uh, what's the word?
Transparent.
Yeah, transparent. Anyway, I suppose I can't think of the word I'm trying to. It'll come to me in a minute, but like it's okay to be talk about the good and the bad, and like tell that story. These are things we've learned here. And it's all part of the journey. Even on a project, like what are some of the obstacles we overcame here? Well, when we pulled this wall off, we realized that blur existed. We didn't account for that initially, but this is how we fixed it. Like showcase proactive thinking and just all these kind of little things there that can really again position you as the expert and give you a reason to talk and communicate on it through various sources of content.
Cool. Yeah.
Anyway, I think we've pretty much wrapped that. If you guys have any questions out there, if you've had any experiences, what has worked well for you guys with branding, what has not worked well, let us know in the comments whenever you see this come through. Be super keen to hear that. I know some of you guys do an amazing job of it, and I also know that some of you guys have got amazing experiences and runs on the board from doing things that we haven't even spoken about. So I would love to hear about some of those things as well. Crystal, your website is lemonseedmarketing.com. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Cool. And you guys are based in Texas. So for you guys over in the US and looking for an awesome marketing agency, lemonseedmarketing.com. I'll have links to all of that within the show notes over at theSiteshow.com, so you can head across there if you guys are driving. Otherwise, yeah, I'm sure if you have questions, I can rubber arm Crystal to coming back on the show and answering some of those. But I think it was a good conversation. And it's also very nice to hear that a lot of the things we practice over here are the same over in the North American space. So it seems to me like we're all doing something right.
Good branding is good branding. And yeah, Lemon Seed is a branding agency and a strategy agency. So we don't do digital marketing at all. We are here to help you build out a strategy for how to use all of your marketing dollars, along with helping you build and even refresh and send out your brand into the market. So that's what we do. So we're a pretty unique agency. There's not a lot of agencies like us that do what we do.
That's great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic.
Well, thanks for letting me be here. It's been great.
No, well, thanks for coming, and I'll let you. It's getting late over there, cooking, coming up to 5 o'clock. So I'll let you get home to the nagging kids, no doubt, and I'll crack on with my day here. So thank you, everyone, and that is a wrap.